2024 will definitely go down as the year of live service games just not catching a break, man. I mean, you got from Concord, the biggest financial flop probably in video game history, to X Defiant being shut down in less than a year. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. And other games just trying so hard to beat Fortnite and just not even getting close to that level, not even sniffing that level. And I feel like this has become the problem with the AAA game industry is that everyone wants to make their money back and everyone wants to compete in the same headspace as the big dogs, but they don't want to put in the effort and the longevity work the big dogs had to put in. Call of Duty, for the record, it was not a overnight success. Like, you have to remember, like, when Call of Duty first came out, like, it was a World War II, kind of, historical, I'll use quote unquote, shooter. Like, it was a game that was very much about, showing the history, the tragedies of war. And then once you got into Modern Warfare, the first Modern Warfare game, that's when the multiplayer element really started kicking off. Then you had Black Ops, you had Modern Warfare 2, you had World at War. Some call that the golden age of Call of Duty. I think personally that golden age of Call of Duty died when Black Ops 2 came out, because like after that point, everything was kind of, it kind of dropped off. But Call of Duty has always maintained this level of success. Just like, it's unprecedented. Like, unless your name is Pokemon, or I think it's literally just Pokemon, I don't think has been a franchise that has had this consistent level of success and that puts in very little effort. Like, there's infamously that clip that went around when Call of Duty Ghosts was the new one, and it was talking about their dogs, like how they were really emphasizing the dogs this year. Like, I remember this very well. And like how they would emphasize, like, the fish would move when you got close to them. And they were like, man, this is some groundbreaking technology here. And meanwhile, in the rest of the industry, this was like, yeah, this kind of already happens. But Call of Duty put in a lot of work. They put in a lot of, trying to keep the player base at least somewhat happy. But I think, we're kind of in the middle of the second golden age of Call of Duty, because I've heard people say this new Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, is really good. I've watched people play it, and it's like, even like a former Call of Duty guy myself, I have that itch every once in a while. It's like, I really wish I had the money to play this. And X Defiant, for the most part, was trying to kind of fill that gap. It'd be like that Call of Duty-ish type of game, but it's free to play, so it's like you didn't have to spend as much money on it. But I think the problem with that is a lot of people either go back to a previous Call of Duty they really like, because surprisingly enough, a lot of those damn servers are still up and running. Like, people who are nostalgic for like Black Ops 2 can still go play Black Ops 2. I don't know if they could get in a multiplayer match, but they can go back play the original Black Ops 2 single player. And, so on and so forth. If you think of Call of Duty, they could go back and play that single player. But not many people want to play X Defiant, and that's why now, today, they made this announcement that they're shutting down X Defiant. And in the case of a game like Concord was already dated before it came out. Like, we heard stories like the game cost almost $20 million for them, just the initial cost that, was how much it cost them to make the game at first. That Sony came in, invested $200 million. Sorry, I meant to say $200 million. And it's like, at what point do these developers just realize they're kind of scamming these people? And I was like, I kind of feel, like that's the wrong way to put it, but it feels like that's what happened with Concord. I feel like maybe they knew the game wasn't very good, but they saw these investors who were like, hey, no, this is what's popular, right? This is like the Overwatch. So hey, just here, take this money. Just take this money. Okay, we'll keep working on the game. And once Sony put the boot on the neck, I was like, oh yeah, it's coming out. It's gonna be something, and I'm gonna lose my job, am I? I literally think that's what happened with Concord. It's like, maybe the developers themselves knew this game wasn't very good because they saw the rest of the industry, not do these type of games and see how crowded the market was. But because people kept throwing money at them, they're like, Sure, why not? And this kind of seems to be the problem with video game development these days, is that a lot of developers, you know, they probably start off very passionate about projects like Concord, but as the market change and the time progresses, I feel like they lose some of that passion. Now, I think single player games still have that level of passion every once in a while you see pop up, but there's so much pressure on them to make money. That's why they have to keep doing these remasters, these remakes, whatever. Because in other ways, there's no way they're making their money back. Right? Because like you think about it, it's like how many versions of The Last of Us have we gotten? We've got at least 3 versions of The Last of Us 1 I'm aware of. And that's because Naughty Dog's not pumping out games. They can't keep making these games endless, they can't make games endlessly and at the same level that people expect from them. So Sony keeps throwing money at them saying, hey, we're excited for your next game, just let us know when it's ready. Meanwhile, it's basically a never-ending, pumping cash into the, Naughty Dog. Then it's like very little comes out. So that's why they do the remakes and remasters, because then in Sony's eyes, it's like, well, that is a Naughty Dog IP, so it's like, technically that's Naughty Dog kind of pulling their weight, but even from what I've seen, when it comes to The Last of Us Part 1, that might not have done super well in sales. Like, I think a lot of people are kind of just done with the remasters, and this is going to lead into a problem going forward. Investors want to keep pumping money into games, but they expect so much in return. And that's why I do think you see a lot of studios shutting down their games, within a year or less. Because I think the investors are just, they see the writing on the wall and they say, well, we're pulling our money. And it's like, well, if they're not going to keep pumping endless money into us, and these games cost so much to maintain the servers and, keep content flowing, at some point, they're just going to say, fuck it. We're just going to drop it. We're just going to drop it and move on to the next project. Move on to the next big thing that, we're going to scam our investors, out of their money of. So, yeah. This is something that's not surprising to me. I think live service games are done. Like, if I'm being 100% honest here, I think that live service bubble has popped. And I think now you're going to see a lot of these live service studios shut down. I think a lot of people are banking on big games to be successful. Games like, GTA 6, Ghost of Yotei. Probably they're banking on a little bit on Death Stranding 2 to be successful. But I don't think those games have the longevity that investors look for. At the end of the day, I think the gaming industry is heading towards a crash. And it's because investors just want endless money. They just want endless money. They want to, they think, hey, if we pump enough money into these companies, then eventually we'll get our money back. But the problem is, that's not a guarantee. Especially when you got some shit going on behind the scenes that just, honestly, it kind of hurts the project. It hurts people's, perspective of it. You're seeing it with a game like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, where like, hey, this sounds like a great game on paper, but at the same time, because there's so much controversy going around with this game, I honestly think the problem with this game, it's not going to be so much the game itself, it's the perception of the game and how gamers are viewing the AAA game industry right now. The perception of the AAA game industry is not good. It is very much in the dumpster. Every once in a while you'll get one of those few games from these big AAA publishers that is like, hey, this is actually really good. But it's like, it's kind of good in the in the aspect of everything else has been so shitty that the most average product, the most decent product, somehow now gets levitated to, Game of the Year contendership. Games like Stellar Blade, for example. And it's just, I'm sorry, man. I hate being this doom and gloomer, but at the same time, I think live service games are going to be the death of the AAA gaming industry. And I don't want that day to happen. I don't want that day where all the AAA publishers have to shut down and say, hey, we're done. We're packing up the bags. We're done, Jimmo, because, the money's gone. I do feel like, the consumers need to back the quality products and let the shitty products fall to the wayside. That's honestly what my opinion is. And I feel like, honestly, what's good and what's bad, it's all a matter of perspective. It's all a matter of taste. But it just feels like recently just them live service games, man, they're hurting this industry. And yeah, this is why I'm so glad Naughty Dog decided to pull away from doing the Last of Us multiplayer project. Because what if that game would have financially flopped? Right? What if that game would have flopped? What if the IP wasn't enough to carry that game going forward? What if that IP was only, popular in the aspect of a single player game? What if the Last of Us multiplayer game would have been a financial flop? It could have sunk Naughty Dog. Same thing with Spider-Man and the Greater Web. We all think, hey, on paper, these multiplayer projects sound great. They sound like they'd be a great time to play. But if there isn't seasonal content, if there isn't regular updates, if there isn't a bunch of new stuff being added to the game every so often, people turn their heads away and they say, okay, we're done. No more Spider-Man, no more Last of Us multiplayer. We're moving on to Call of Duty or the new season of Fortnite. Because that's honestly what their biggest competition would be. Is that they have to compete with what people's habits have become. People's habits of, going and buying the new Call of Duty and sinking like 6 months of experience into that. Or, hey, the new season of Fortnite's got a Godzilla skin. I want that. So here, let me go sink in those hours to get that skin. And meanwhile, poor freaking Last of Us and Spider-Man sit there kind of like, well, they'll come back eventually, right? And, like all their live service games say, they never come back. No matter how good you are, you can't compete with those guys. They got skins. They got brand recognition. You guys, you're popular, but you're not as popular as you used to be. Look at Helldivers 2 in that situation, how like that player base has fallen off. Now, granted, Helldivers 2 has gotten better with its, content updates and all that stuff. And I do think Helldivers 2 has still its place in the market. But it's like, that's like one the few exceptions. Like, people are still playing it. Because how many people are still playing, the latest Battlefield? Yeah. So that's my ranting and rambling. Sorry if it's kind of everywhere on this. But it's like, I kind of have thoughts on this. So I figure, hey, let's just talk about it. It's towards the end of the year. It's just like me kind of being a bit of a doom and gloomer. Like, oh my God, this is the end of gaming. Gaming won't die until the last developer, decides they're going to quit making games. Because I think, this year for big AAA games has been, kind of a flop. In fact, it pretty much has been. I do think the smaller, AA indie level games have definitely risen up and stepped up the competition to the point that, honestly, I think some of those games should have been a Game of the Year contender. But until next time, guys, this is That PlayStation Gamer. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that YouTube arrow and BS. Let me know what you guys think of the big AAA live service bubble. Do you think it's popped? I think it's popped because obviously. And what do you think of where things are going? Do you think games are going down a very dark path, or do you think we'll finally get out of this fucking darkness and see the tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel kind of situation? Let me know in the comment section below. And until next time, peace.